Welcome to Rites of Passage, Stories of Service, presented by Milltree Veteran Project. I'm Dawn Davis, and in this 5-episode series, you'll hear from participants of Milltree's recent Rites of Passage program. Milltree is a nonprofit organization based in Joshua Tree, California, creating community between veterans, service members, and civilians through the arts, dialogue, shared projects, and creative entrepreneurship. Running from February through June of 2026, Rites of Passage brought participants together for a weekend retreat, writing workshops, performance coaching, and live storytelling events, offered to participants at no cost through the support of the California Arts Council Community Impact Grant and generous community donors. Let me introduce John Kalb, a Vietnam veteran, musician, actor, theater producer, and longtime supporter of Milltree programs. John served in the Navy aboard the aircraft carrier USS Oriskany during the Vietnam War and wrote his Rites of Passage piece, Fire on the Water, about a tragic shipboard fire that remains one of the deadliest in U.S. naval history. Beyond his military service, John and his wife Yolanda founded New Vision Theater, where they have spent years creating opportunities for community storytelling through live performance. He is also a songwriter and musician, and you'll hear a portion of his song Desert Nights throughout this series. Today, John reflects on memory, resilience, and the stories that stay with us long after the events themselves. Good to have you here.
Thank you. Good to be here.
What inspired you to join the Navy?
Well, that's easy. It was 1964, and they were still drafting guys.
Oh, right. For people who are listening, that's an interesting point. It did come up a little bit earlier, but we kind of skipped over it. Let's talk about what the draft was, if for people who maybe not know.
Well, in those days, if you were a male and you were 18, you were required to go down and sign up for the selective service. And the Army, basically it was the Army, had a quota, and they would draft X number of people to make sure that the military ranks were full. I was going to college at Purdue University, and wasn't my thing. So I dropped out, and that immediately put your name on top of the list.
Oh, wow. That I didn't know.
So yeah. I knew, I actually knew the lady that worked at the draft board. So I went over and said, this was in like December of 1964. I said, so when do you think I'm going? She said, probably February. And I walked immediately out the door and down the hall to the Navy recruiter and said, I think I'd rather be in the Navy than go to Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I ended up in the Navy.
Oh, my gosh. Do you remember when they stopped the draft? I don't remember when that was.
They shortly after that, I think probably 66 or 67, they went to the lottery system.
Okay.
Where, you still had to register, but then they drew numbers. And depending on your number, you kind of knew whether you were going to be drafted or not drafted.
Yeah.
But back in those days, in 1964, 65, if you were capable, physically capable of serving, you were going. Right. I mean, it was just, just the way it was.
Right, exactly. I remember going to the post office with my high school boyfriend, and he was registering there.
Yep.
And that was in the early 80s.
Yeah, they still register because they want to know where you are. But now I don't think there is a draft at all.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Interesting. That'd be something to look up later. When you first sat down to write your piece during this Rites of Passage program, did you already know the story you wanted to tell, or did it reveal itself through the initial 3-day retreat and then into the editing, writing workshops?
Yeah, I think I had an inkling about what I wanted to write about because I've never really sat down and told the story as I remember it, and of course it's been 60 years at this point almost, and I just, I thought, well, this would make an interesting story. And, what's interesting to me is just not that long ago, another aircraft carrier had a fire.
Oh, my gosh.
In the over near Iran, the Gerald Ford. So evidently we haven't learned much.
Right. Oh my gosh. So you did mention that happened nearly 6 years ago. So why do you think that this particular story was still waiting to be told and suddenly came up for you now?
I don't know. I mean, it's. I never took the time to sit down with my kids, for instance, or grandkids, and tell them anything about the military. Really, it's. I think it's a lot of military people, when they've gone through something that's left an impression on them, they don't talk about it much. And I never talked about it much, and I never really thought about it much, frankly. I tried to just put it out of my mind. But in the piece, I did write a little bit about, we had a fire very close to our house, and the firemen were standing on a roof knocking down embers. And that brought back some memories of that particular day. And so that was just the right time for me to write about it.
For folks who aren't aware of what happened on the ship, can you give us a high level of?
Yeah. I mean, basically, a sailor dropped a magnesium flare in a flare locker that had about 700 magnesium flares in it, and it exploded. And magnesium, of course, when it burns, creates its own oxygen, so it was almost impossible to put the fire out. And it spread, smoke was the worst part, into officers' quarters mostly. And it took us 2.5, 3 hours to put the fire out. We were loading bombs onto planes very near where the fire was, and so all of that had to go over the side. And the bottom line of all of it, and the sad part of it, was there were 136 injured and 44 dead as a result of mostly the smoke.
And in the story, you talk about how sad that day was when you all did pull into port and you had to do the parade.
Right. Every time we pulled into a port, we'd do a parade around the flight deck. But on this particular day, it was 43 coffins were offloaded and flown back to the U.S. And then, like I said, one commander had requested, should he ever be killed, that he be buried at sea. And we did that 2 days after we left the Philippines.
Wow. And I noticed, a couple of us noticed during the process of this workshop that there were a couple of people that were either on the Oriskany as well, or knew someone who was on the Oriskany, and that was revealed during the course of the workshop. How unusual is that for, being in service at that time, for people to find each other that way?
Well, there's over 1 million people in the United States military. And for 3 people to connect over the USS Oriskany, which had somewhere around 4,000 guys on it, I would say it's pretty weird, pretty strange, actually, that happened. But I've actually run into a few people over my life that had some acquaintance with the Oriskany, because it was commissioned in 1945, right at the end of World War II, and was in service for the better part of 30 years.
Wow.
And today it's a reef off the coast of Florida.
I was going to ask you to talk about that. So they just sunk it. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, it had run its course. It wasn't a big enough carrier to actually launch today's aircraft. So it was just under 1,000 feet long, and the most of them today are 1,200, 1,300 feet. So it had served its purpose, and they decided, well, maybe we can give it a second life, and we'll just blow a hole in it and put it off the coast of Florida.
Do you know if people dive, if there's like a fish population
that they created a reef is what they did.
Okay.
And they needed coral. And so that's what it is. It's a coral reef now.
Well, that's a good use of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. As you revisited those events that you wrote about, was there anything you noticed now that you couldn't see at the time when you were in the situation?
Yeah, how scared I should have been. But yeah, I think it's a thing when you're in one of those situations, you're not even thinking about it.
Sure.
I mean, they just tell you, you go do this and you go do it. And I mean, that's just the way it is. But looking back at it now, I mean, I don't even know. Like I said, there were bombs sitting there. They had fuses in them, and they were what were called anti-personnel bombs. So if they exploded, it would have been shrapnel going up all across the deck. That said, I don't know if they were impact fuses or the heat could have. I mean, we have no idea.
Right.
And we didn't stop to ask questions. I can tell you, we just wanted it off the ship.
Totally, yeah. The other thing that was really interesting was you mentioned that the firefighting foam was made with ox blood.
Yeah, it is.
And you, at some point, it occurred to you that ox blood was now leaking into the ocean, and would we soon be surrounded by sharks?
We were. It wasn't soon. They were there, and they were attracted to that, I'm quite sure. That and the sampans of fishing boats. I mean, it's like they came up out of the water. It was like, they're just all of a sudden they're everywhere. It's kind of surreal when you look back and the pictures that come back and, you think about it and go, yeah, it was really sad and yet an adventure all at the same time.
Right, and kind of frightening because you're just on this boat in the middle of the ocean,
that's
with fire.
That's the piece that's kind of, I mean, when you actually stop and think about it, there were somewhere between 4,000 and 4,500 men on that ship. Yeah. And what are they going to do with us?
Right.
How are they going to get us off of there?
Yeah.
First of all, you could say, oh, well, they'll helicopter you. Well, we had 3 helicopters and 2 of them were gone.
Oh, right. I remember you talking about they pushed them over the side. Yeah.
2 of them melted, basically. So you don't even think about those kinds of things. But looking back at it, if, in fact, the fire had gotten down to where the fuel was, and there had been a problem down there, we'd have been in the water.
Wow. What an experience. What drew you to Miltree? You've done a number of workshops. I think I actually heard you say you've done every one that they've ever offered.
Well, in terms
Is that true?
of, I've done the songwriting ones for the last couple of 3 years. I did a movement workshop. It took me about a week and a half to recover from that one. But yeah, I mean, first of all, I like to support people that are any kind of organization that's helping these guys transition back out of the military. Because even though it doesn't seem like it should be a big deal, it is.
Right.
It's a whole different experience. I mean, you're 18, 19 years old, for many of them away from home for the first time. And they've done their tour, and it comes a time where they decide either I'm staying in or I'm getting out. And if you get out, it's a transition.
Talk about that a little more. Like, I mean, in my research that I've done, it sounds like you're brought in when you join, and it's almost like they strip away your entire identity to just be what they need you to be. And then you have to rediscover that, reclaim it when you are coming out of that.
I'd say there is an element of that, but there's also a very strong sense of team, of bonding when you're in there, because I mean, for those of us who were getting drafted or about to get drafted and all of that, it may have been that we were bonded together because we didn't like the military.
Interesting. Yeah.
But, they're your brothers.
Right.
They're your brothers in arms, if you will.
Yeah.
And then when you separated and you go away from that, immediately you leave that family behind.
It's like an isolation almost.
And you are almost isolated, absolutely. And so there is a big adjustment period. And so I love the fact that there's an organization up here that is doing their best to assist in that. And I want to be supportive of that because I think it's important work that they do.
Thank you for being here. On that note, what role would you say storytelling plays in helping veterans and civilians understand one another?
Oh, it's a big role. I mean, I think unless you've actually been there, I can only imagine what the guys that are in Iraq right now, or in Iran right now, what are they going through? Yeah. And it helps. I think it's more cathartic for the person that's telling the story, perhaps, than the people that they're telling it to, because it just helps you cope with it. It helps you deal with it. Helps you get past it. And I think it's important that there's a forum for that. And this is a pretty good forum. I mean, the retreat that you mentioned earlier was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Can you talk more about that? Renee, when she was on earlier, mentioned that they talked about it as, she said she'd never done a sweat lodge, but that it was a similar experience. What was your experience in that retreat weekend with that?
I think it was. I mean, I think, again, when you spend 3 days with people in a quote unquote sweat lodge type of atmosphere, it's another bonding experience. It really is. And throughout the process, you can see people's walls breaking down.
Interesting.
Where they're opening up and everybody's got stories inside them. Everybody's got maybe pain, maybe whatever. And when you start to feel safe enough to put that out there, it really is a healing process.
Looking back on the entire process of this particular Rites of Passage Stories of Service program, what part of the experience for you surprised you the most?
Well, the retreat, first of all, was, and I've been to a few retreats in my life, so I kind of knew what to expect. But like I said, I just think the fact that you saw so many people open up, drop the wall, and get past it was really, really very eye-opening, and for me, a very important part of the whole process, because then you feel free to talk about whatever's on your mind, and I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. Like I said, I'd do it again.
So you're after you came out of the service, you kind of turned to some creative pursuits. Your wife and yourself created a theater. You have actually been on stage playing roles in theater. So how does that all fit into, is that part of your healing process, or were you always a creative person before you went into the service and just returned to it?
Yeah, I mean, I was in the high school band and stuff, but actually, I didn't actually get into doing theater a performance until I was in my 50s.
Wow.
But I learned, taught myself how to play a guitar when I was on the Oriskany, actually. And,
gosh.
We were in Japan, and I saw a guitar in a shop, and I paid $9 for my first guitar.
Oh my goodness.
and there were, a few guys on the ship that played, and I learned a few chords and tinked around a little bit. And then interestingly enough, when I was about to get out of the service, my best friend in the service called me and said he was getting married, would I be his best man? And he was in Phoenix. I was in San Francisco at the time. I said, sure. And so I got out in April. I got to Phoenix, and I said, when's the wedding? He said, August.
Planning ahead.
That was 1969, and my wife was maid of honor.
Oh, wow.
That's where we met.
Oh, sweet.
And so 57 years this year.
Wow, congratulations.
And, never thought much about it. I started, I went to Arizona State, graduated, worked in the insurance business. We had a family. Music was always something I loved to do, and I played. I did some festivals and small gigs and that kind of stuff. Didn't get serious about songwriting until in the 80s. And then I've thought about it many, many times about trying to make it a career. But, I had a family. You got to take care of the family. And so even though I've had some success with it, and I got 3 albums floating around somewhere on the planet, it was more for me, if you know what I mean. It was more my way of expressing my thoughts. Today, I guess if I'd be doing social media, but I'm not. I'm just not big on that.
No.
I mean, if I got a thought and I want to say something, I put it into a song.
There you go.
And the theater thing came along. That was sort of strange too, because I had a friend in the insurance business who actually was an actuary, which how do you know an actuary is always looking at his feet? We're introverts, right? So he came to me one day and said, we need somebody to play a little part in a community theater play. And I said, well, I've never done any acting, but he said, you'll be great. You don't have any fear of the stage. You'll be fine. So I said, okay, I'll do it. It was a melodrama. And so I did it, and I went there, and I started out just with this tiny little part for about 2 minutes on stage. And by the end of that production, I was doing all the backstage work, setting the lights. I was doing everything, and I just absolutely loved it. So I got involved, and maybe 4 or 5 years later is when we actually formed the company, put in a bid in Oceanside for a live venue, and then ran a live theater for 7 years in Oceanside, and did 35 full-length plays.
Wow.
And I figured it out one time that my wife and I spent 250 nights a year in that theater.
Oh my gosh. Well, when you do that kind of project, the first theater I worked in was when I lived in North Carolina. And the woman who came out and introduced the show and gave all the announcements was the same person who was working in the box office and doing all of the office and administrative. And so when you do get involved, sometimes you're doing a lot.
They call it community theater.
For a reason, right. Exactly. So if I read something correctly, you were also, speaking of your music, recently at the Americana folk music.
Well, no, there's a series in the Cultural Center in Palm Springs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
That's
so
it.
I did.
Yeah.
I did a show there. Americana music, original music. I'm at the point in life where I don't really do gigs anymore where I got to do cover music.
Sure.
I'll be 80 this year.
Congratulations.
I got no need to do cover music.
No.
But I do enjoy it. I look for opportunities, and I go to open mics and things like that just to keep my hand in, and every once in a while I get inspired and write another song, but not so many anymore. I have to say these days I'm a lot more focused on politics than I ever thought I would be.
Well, and rightfully so.
I mean, and if I can digress just a little.
Of course.
The thing that really bothers me today is the impact we're having on our kids. Mm-hmm. Because kids are going to do what they see. Mm-hmm. And what they see today is a divisive country, and let me just say this, thank God I'm 80.
Right.
Because I just don't know where we're headed.
Right. It's very difficult.
It's very difficult.
And especially now, we talked earlier about the environment of the service being collaboration and teamwork, and I've got your back, and we could use a little of that.
Yeah, the way I describe it, I said if you gave every one of our politicians a paddle and put them in a boat today, they'd go in circles.
Yeah.
they just can't seem to get it together and do something that makes sense. And I'm not terribly political on one side or the other. It's just
humanity. Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. We are for humanity. So folks listening to this series, if they've listened to all the episodes, or 5, at the beginning we have an instrumental piece that is part of a larger piece called Desert Nights. Mm-hmm. That was a song written in a Miltree workshop, a singer-songwriter workshop, and we are going to play the entirety of that song at the end of your episode so people can hear you sing and play. But we wanted to make sure that we gave credit to the people that helped you with this, and you can tell us the story about how it came together pretty quickly. But that was Audrey Philpott, Alice Jones, your wife Yolanda Kalb, Alex Burton, Tim Easton, and John Kalb. So how did that all happen?
Well, in the workshop, you're basically sitting around a table, and the facilitator, it was Tim Easton, and I loved him. Really good guy.
Super local love musician, yeah.
And so he threw us a challenge. So here's a title. Talk about the desert at night. Mm-hmm. And so we sat down, and you throw ideas around, you bounce them around, and this, that, and the other. And we looked up all of a sudden, and we're about 15 minutes from doing live performance.
That'll get you going.
And we've got 2 verses and some, maybe a little bit of a chorus. And so Tim grabbed a whiteboard, and we started throwing things together, and somehow, some way, we pieced something together. Mm-hmm. And it was just, well, like I said, a stage doesn't scare me, so we just went up there and we did it. Right.
Right.
And then I took the song, I took all of the people's input and tried to at least save a line or 2 that everybody had contributed and put it together into what is today Desert Nights. And I may be a little bit biased, but I think it came out pretty good.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so I'm happy with it. I'm proud of it, and I hope all the other folks that contributed are as well.
I'm sure they are. And now whoever's listening is going to have an opportunity to hear it for themselves.
Great.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
Well, as the sun sinks neath the mountain, flamingo sunset paints the sky. Nightfall in the desert, hear coyotes cry. There's an owl up in the tree, think he's watching over me. Well, Mother Nature sings her song in perfect harmony. Yeah, this land's so filled with wonder, I have no need to roam, for the desert is where my heart feels at home. Yeah, this desert is where my heart feels at home. When I was young and restless, needed to find my way, I headed out upon the road looking for a place to stay. When I came up on this desert, it felt like I belonged. I found a place to put down roots, yeah, a place to build a home. In a land so filled with wonder, I have no need to roam, for the desert is where my heart feels at home. Yeah, this desert is where my heart feels at home. Well, I love the crystal rock, hidden rivers and desert bloom. Most of all, I love these nights neath the stars and silver moon. And when the quail are in their clutches and the rabbits disappear, the peaceful sound of silence reminds me why I'm here. In this land so filled with wonder, I have no need to roam, for the desert is where my heart feels at home. Yeah, this desert is where my heart feels at home.
You've been listening to Rites of Passage, Stories of Service, presented by Milltree Veteran Project. If this conversation resonated with you, I hope you'll share it with a friend. Music for this series is courtesy of participant John Kalb and his fellow songwriters from the Milltree Songwriters Workshop. Recorded at Goat Mountain Studio in Landers, California. To hear more stories like this, support the work, or learn about future workshops, visit mill-tree.org. Until next time, thanks for listening.